All right, here's an example of an old vestment that has interlining. I folded it. This is a picture of it, so you won't see me moving around. But I folded the corner up so that you could see that's what the lining really looks like. I laid it over top of it. It's also what the vestment fabric looks like. It's a kind of a red satin. The lining is a little bit different. It's not really a satin. The embroidery's been done with a piece of, it's rather like linen, but I kind of think it's really just a piece of cotton as a stabilizer. And you can see that the embroidery goes through both layers, both the satin layer and the cotton layer. And the cotton here was used as a stabilizer. As I say, this is an old vestment before they had the new types of stabilizers that we use now. You can see a lot of it has been hand done. Some of it was done by machine, but with an old type of machine that did chain embroidery. That's all it did was lines and lines of chain. You can see that especially around the edges where it has that sawtooth sort of edging. And because they were using that instead of a trim, this was all done as one piece. It wasn't, as I explained before, that where they took different sections and put it together. It was all done as one piece. And so it had this piece of cotton over the back of all of the satin, and they embroidered through all layers. This was a commercially done piece. This was not a hand. The parts of the embroidery is by hand, but it was. This was made by Benzinger, I believe, back probably in the 1940s. The second, you'll see this other piece of very white fabric folded over the top. That's the actual interlining. It's little bit thicker, and it is a kind of a muslin. It's not linen. And it was laid down, again, exact width of the fabric, and then the lining was put on and wrapped around to the front and covered by a trim. It was like a 1/4 of an inch basket weave sort of trim that's not showing up in this picture. So again, this particular vestment did have interlining. It's heavily embroidered, and it is a bit heavy, which may account for the fact that they have the interlining. In fact, it has 2 layers, though the actual interlining is that shinier, the whiter white one. The other one is kind of a stabilizer, and it's very thin fabric. It's more like cotton broadcloth. And so it had actually 4 layers of fabric: the main fabric, the cotton broadcloth fabric, the interlining fabric, and then the lining. So and altogether, if you were to look at it, it's still extremely thin. It's only about less than 1/8 of an inch, I think, thick, and it's not very heavy, not very dense, and it doesn't weigh much. The weight of it is rather like any other fabric that doesn't even have interlining. The interlining, again, I think was just to stabilize it because the satin was very flimsy. The cotton piece was there to stabilize the embroidery, wasn't really there to add any weight to it. And so to keep their vestment from distorting, they added interlining. I just wanted you to see what an old vestment with interlining looked like, and then I'll show you how to put it in. I thought I would show how to do an interlining. I've talked about interlining in the vestment seminar. Well, probably precedes this. But I never showed anyone how to do it. This vestment needs an interlining because of the heavy embroidery that's part of it. The original vestment had an interlining. I'll show pictures of that if I haven't already done it. So, how do you do it? You put the vestment piece down on the interlining. This interlining is coarsely woven muslin, white muslin. It's medium heavy, toward heavy. I'd say more medium. Yeah, it's more medium grade. And you simply cut out the vestment. Notice this is not quite wide enough, but this area is going to be in the pocket, so it won't matter. So all you do is you cut exactly, use your main fabric piece as the pattern, and you cut out around it exactly the same size. And from that point on, you're going to treat this and the underlining and the main fabric as one entity. This is the only thing that's going to get interlining, the chasuble. None of the small pieces are going to get it. So you don't need a lot of fabric for this. Possibly 2 yards, 3 yards, depends upon the width. This fabric is only about 1 yard wide. You could use something like Trigger too. It's a nice medium weight fabric. Cotton, I believe. Though it may be synthetic now. Doesn't matter whether it's cotton or it's synthetic, natural fiber. All that's important is the weight of it. Alright, so this is now cut out. And at this point, I would just continue to do the lining. Just leave it here like this and do the lining. I have it pinned in a couple places, but I would thoroughly pin this. You could also, at this point, baste through all the layers, so around, but I've already basted this down on the fabric. Actually, not basted, I've actually totally sewn it down on the fabric. So I don't need to do that, but you want to keep them together as one piece. And as you line it, it will work that way. So I'm only going to pin them together because I'll need to pick this up so I can put my lining down on the table and then proceed to do the lining on it. I'm not going to cut the inner lining on the other piece until I'm ready to line it. Why? Just because I don't like moving things around too often. More chance of things getting distorted or twisted. The less you move it, fraying. Because you want to treat these as one piece, it's one more chance for the two of them to get out of alignment. So technically right now I'm finished with the inner lining, ready to line. That was so hard.